Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Just kidding. So welcome back. So this week we are going to do lesson week 5. Okay, so lesson week 5 involves a few things. Okay, gonna look at the weekly schedule. Okay, we're gonna look at the weekly schedule to see what are the topics that we are covering this week. So this week, remember I told you that we are moving up the lessons. So this week we are looking at the lessons for modal verbs. Okay. So the topics are modal verb to express necessity or obligation, modal verb to express ability, modal verb to express probability, and modal verb to express permission. Now this one, modal verb to express permission, we'll be using our supplementary material 2. This supplementary material can be found on Edmodo. If you go to Edmodo, you click under the folders tab, you will see a folder called supplementary material. Okay, so when you open that, you should be able to see these documents uploaded online, so you can use those for your reference. Okay, now so these are the pages that we're going to cover this week. Okay, if we look at the notes, actually for this week, we are going to cover a few of the notes. Okay, let's see. I've already highlighted. Okay, the topics that we will be covering for this week. Okay, the first one we're going to cover is 5.1 models, an overview. We're also going to cover 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.8, 5.9, and 5.10. Okay, now you are probably wondering, why are we not covering these other topics, 5.5, 5.6, 5.7, 5.11? Because these are not in the lesson plan. You will not be tested on these. So that's why we are not going to go through that. We're only going to go through the notes that are highlighted here. Okay, now before we start with 5.1, as usual, I want you guys to take out your textbook, okay? And we are going to look at chapter 5, models and related expressions, okay? And as usual, before we start the lesson, we are going to read the text. Okay, the text is called Passwords. Okay, and as usual, I want you guys to listen to the audio file of the text, because I want you to listen to the pronunciation and all that. Okay, so let's start with the audio file. Okay, I hope you guys are ready.
Lesson 5, page 134, reading 1.
Passwords, passwords, passwords.
Lesson 5, page 134, reading 1.
Sorry, it repeated itself.
Passwords, passwords, passwords. Technology is supposed to make our lives easier, but it can also be frustrating at times. You may be overwhelmed by the number of passwords you have to have for your bank account, shopping sites, airlines, social media, email, and so on. You have got to remember which password goes with which account. Each account has special requirements for passwords. For some accounts, you must include at least one uppercase letter. For other accounts, you have to include at least one number. In some cases, your password must be at least 8 characters long and include a number and an uppercase letter. To prevent identity theft, experts say you should change your password at least once a month. You might ask yourself, how can anyone keep track of so many passwords? If you forget your password, you can usually retrieve it by clicking on Forgot Password. You sometimes have to answer security questions that you answered when you opened your account. For example, you might be asked, what is your mother's maiden name? Or, in what city was your father born? But the answers to some security questions are not so easy. For example, the answer to, "Who is your favorite athlete?" could change over time. Even a simple question like, "What school did you go to when you were 10 years old?" might have several answers. The correct answer could be Taft or Taft Elementary School. Your answer has to match the original one exactly. Sometimes technology can be frustrating, but most people today would rather not live without it.
Okay, so that is the end of the text. So now let's look at, as usual, the comprehension check. Okay, comprehension check. Let's look at the first question. Sorry, let's look at the instructions first. Based on the reading, tell if the statement is true, T, or false, F. Okay, so number one, it's a good idea to change your password every month. Number two, it's possible to use the same password for most of your accounts. Number three, all passwords require an uppercase letter or number. Okay, so please make sure that you answer the questions, these questions, you include these answers in the answer sheet. Okay, so as usual, this is how I'll be conducting the class. We'll be going through the notes, okay? And then at the end of each note that I cover, I will be assigning you the exercises, okay? So you have to give me the answers for the exact exercise that I assign, okay? So other than that, um, um, nothing. Okay. So seriously, you just have to make sure that you submit only the answers that I asked for, okay? Because this is proof that you have listened into my lecture and you have completed the work, okay? And as usual, this will be time limited, okay? You will have to submit the work, the answers within a time limit that I set, okay, on Edmodo. Okay, so let's move on to the first notes. We're going to go through the 5.1, I think. Okay, an overview of modal verbs. Okay, so modal verbs, I don't know how many of you know or understand about it. Okay, no matter, we're going to go through it. Next slide. Okay, modal verbs, an overview. So first of all, I want you to understand what is modal verbs, okay? In other words, sometimes they are called helping verbs, or sometimes they're even called auxiliary verbs. Huh? But modal verbs are words like can, could, should, would, may, might, must, and must, okay? So these verbs, we call them modals, they are usually added before a verb, okay? And usually the models will add meaning to the verbs that follow them. For example, for a simple sentence, you just say, I eat, or you eat 2 times a day, for example. So when you add a model in front of it, of the verb eat, you must eat 2 times a day. So significantly, there is a change in the meaning between you eat 2 times a day and you must eat 2 times a day. So that's why it means that modals, they add meanings to the verb that follow them, okay? Now, let's look at the explanation for these modal verbs, or modals, we call them, okay? Now, a base form follows a modal, meaning that usually when we use modals in a sentence, okay, the modals will be followed by the main verb. And the main verb will always be in the base form, meaning that it doesn't follow any tenses. You cannot use modal verbs with past tense or any other tense, okay, because usually the main verb will be in the base form. Okay, for example, let's look at this sentence. You should change your password frequently. So here, the main verb is actually change, and change is in the base form. In the base form, okay? You don't write the sentence, for example, change, you use past tense, you should change your password frequently. So that is actually incorrect. Whatever it is, modal verbs must be followed by a base form the base form of the main verb. Okay. Now, a model never has an S ending. Okay. I know sometimes when we write sentences, okay, especially for singular, okay, singular subjects, the main verb will have an S, okay, to indicate that it is singular. For example, she sings a lot, okay, so the word sings usually is with an S at the end to indicate that it is singular. But if you are using modal verbs, okay, modal verbs, the modal verb will not have this S to indicate that it is singular. Doesn't matter. Let's look at the example here. The password for my bank account must include at least one number. So you can see the main verb, even though the password for my bank account is actually one singular idea, okay, even the main verb, because remember the main verb must always be in the base form. So the main verb will not have the S to indicate that this is singular. And the model also will not have an S at the end to indicate that this is singular. Okay, so basically modal verb and also main verb must be in the base. It doesn't matter whether the subjects are singular or plural. Okay, now let's look at the next one. To form the negative, we put not after the model. And so this is quite easy. Okay, you should not tell anyone your password. So if you want a negative sentence, just add not between the modal verb and the main verb. Okay, here in the sentence, the main verb is tell. Okay, now let's look at the next note. The negative of can is written as one word, cannot. Okay, and the contraction for cannot is can't. Okay, so basically, a lot of people make mistakes. They like to separate the can and not. Okay, but if you want to write the negative can, usually it is one word. You join them together. Okay, and yeah, the contraction for cannot is can't. But remember, can't is only used in form of speech. Okay, but if you want to write, you must write the full word cannot. Okay, especially for your assignments or anything, cannot use contraction because contractions are considered as informal language. And when you do your assignments or your paper or your thesis, you must use formal language, okay? Because formal language is used in, what do we call it, in academic writing. Okay, now let's look at the example that was given for cannot. I cannot remember so many passwords, quite simple. Let's move on to the next point then. To form the passive with a model, we use the model plus the be plus the past participle. Okay, it follows the same rule. Whenever we change an active sentence to a passive sentence, okay, we must add the be verb, and we must add the verb will change to the past participle. Okay, we have already covered active and passive voice in the previous lecture. Okay, so it's the same concept except for you just add the models in front. Okay, so the example will be something like passwords should be changed frequently. So we added the be verb here, and we change the verb into past participle, so it becomes changed. Okay, changed. Now, another thing that I like to also express, okay, usually when we make passive sentence, remember the be verb will change according to the tenses. So if we change active to passive, for example, she changed the tire, okay, or the mechanic changed the tire, for example. When we change it into passive voice, it will become the tires was changed or were changed by the mechanic, right? So because in the active we use past tense, so in the passive voice we also will change the be verb into past tense, which is were for the tires, okay? But since we are using modal verbs here, remember the rule of a modal verbs when you use modal verb is the base form will follow the model. So in this sentence, the base form, the verb that follows the model is the be verb. So that's why it retains be. Okay, it doesn't matter what verb, what tenses it was originally. Okay, but when you have a modal verb, um, the be verb will retain in its base form. So it will be something like passwords must be entered exactly. So entered will be the past participle, sorry, entered will be in the past participle, and the be verb will retain its base form because it is following a modal verb. So I hope you understand and remember that, huh? Okay, whatever it is, the number one rule that you need to remember is that when you use modal verbs, okay, the verbs that follow it usually will be in the base form. Okay, now let's look at the next note. Expressions that are like modals in meanings are have to, have got to, be able to, be allowed to, be permitted to, be supposed to, had better. Okay, so these are not really modal verbs, but they are like modal verbs in meaning, means they have the same meaning as a modal verb. Okay, for example, the word have to. So the word have to usually is similar to must. For example, you have to go to school. Okay, so it is similar in meaning to the model must. You must go to school. Okay, so there are expressions that have model verb like meaning. Okay, for example, I can't remember so many passwords. So it can be changed into I am not able to remember so many passwords. So I'm not able to, okay, is similar in meaning to can't. Okay, now another example, you must use letters and numbers. Okay, this is the modal verb. Then if you're using expressions that are similar to modals in meaning, like I mentioned, must will could have the same meaning as have to. Okay, so it will become you have to use letters and numbers. Okay, so I hope you guys understand this overview of modals. Okay, actually there are other models, but here they just listed can, could, should, would, may, might, and must. Okay, now let's look at the 7 patterns with modals. Okay, if you look at the affirmative statement, you should choose a password. Negative statement, you shouldn't choose your name or birthday. Yes or no question, should you choose a long password? Okay, short answer, yes, you should. WH question, why should you choose a long password? Negative WH question, why shouldn't you choose your name? Subject question, who should choose a long password? So if you look at all the 7 patterns using modal verbs, okay, you can see should, shouldn't, doesn't matter what. After the modal verbs, okay, after the modal verbs, oops, sorry, I accidentally click again. Now, after the modal verbs, okay, the main verb will be in the base form. So it will always be choose, 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 choose. Okay, because that, oh my god, I'm sorry, but I think I kind of disconnected a bit. I'm not sure where I stopped. Okay, I'm sorry, my connection isn't that great today as well. Okay. Okay, so if you look at, again, I'm just going to repeat. If you look at all these 7 patterns with modal, okay, you can clearly see that the main verb, okay, when you use a modal in the sentence, the main verb will always be in the base form, okay? So that's it for the notes, okay? Now, for the exercises, exercise number 1, okay, I will be playing an audio file for you, okay, audio file. I want you guys to listen to this audio file. sorry. I want you guys to listen to the audio files, okay? And while you listen to the audio files, I want you guys to complete exercise 1. And I want you to submit the answers for all, for exercise 1 from number 2 till number 13. The answers for number 2 until number 13. So here is the audio file. Today we are going to be a bit long, okay? The audio file, I hope you listen to it.
Lesson 5, pages 135 and 136. Exercise 1.
I'm trying to get into my credit card account, but I can't remember my password.
It's so frustrating. I'm not able to remember my passwords either. I have to write them down. Otherwise, I might forget them. The problem is, I can never remember where I put the paper.
I was told that you shouldn't write them down. What if someone can get into all your accounts?
Well, most sites have a forgot your password link.
The problem is they often tell me I have to pick a completely new password. They sometimes say, you must choose a password that you haven't used in the past year. So then I've got to think of something completely new and remember it.
Another frustration is this. If I'm doing online banking and I leave the computer for 10 minutes, I get timed out. Then I have to log in all over again.
I thought technology was supposed to make our lives easier.
It may simplify our lives in some ways, but in other ways, it has made our lives more complicated.
Okay, so I hope that you heard the audio, and please send in your message, your answers. I am going to stop here for a bit. I will see you later for notes 5.2. See you.